I did this repair last night, woke up this morning and dropped this video. It's not a lot of talking, so pay attention, it goes fast. Okay, tonight we will be replacing the lower control arms on a 2016 Volvo XC60. And I already got my tools down here. You're gonna need you a couple of ratchets. I got a big breaker bar ratchet there just to get the bolts off the bottom. I'm not gonna use my air equipment tonight because it's like midnight and it's nice and cool out. But you're gonna get a 15mm socket, 18mm socket, 21mm wrench. Now the 21mm wrench, once you get these two little nuts off here and here, these are just hand twist nuts. You just twist them off and you can pull back the splash guard, whatever, the wheel well stuff. Now right inside of here, you're gonna see on the top, you see those two little bolts in there? That's what you're working with. Those two bolts at the top are 21mm, 21mm, and on the bottom side they're 18s. So it's an 18mm socket on the bottom side. My 21mm wrench is gonna lock it up so I can get those things off. If I had my air wrench, it would go a whole lot quicker. And this is the left side. I'm on driver's side right now. And so I'm gonna lock that wrench on the top, and then I'll socket bottom. I gotta do it by hand because, like I said, it's late at night. And then you've got also that bolt there on the bottom side. That's an 18mm on the bottom. So you got two 18mm on the bottom, 21 on top, 18mm bottom. And then you got the nut on the back of the, right where your ball joint is. That's your 15mm right there. So that's what you're working with right here. The tops are going to be 21, 21, bottoms 18, 18. That's going to be an 18. That's going to be a 15. So that's basically all you need. Like I said, it's not a big tool. Let's get you a pry bar so you can pry this stuff off. I'm going to get all these bolts off, and then I'll see if I can wiggle this thing out with the pry bar. Okay, now that I'm getting up under the car now, I got one of these bolts off back here. So you're going to have this one in the front here. That's your 18mm. Then you got one right to the back. And what it is it goes through the bottom of this control arm, and it comes up through your sway bar link right there. That's your sway bar right there. So it's actually connected to your sway bar bushing and everything. So like I said, 21mm locked on the top. And how I got to it was, man, like I said, I'm sorry I got to do this at nighttime, but it's 118 degrees in the day. But yeah, so I got the closed end of my wrench, and I went through this little side right back here against the firewall. And I just dropped it right on top. Helped me get to that 20mm bolt at the top. Man, that was loud. Okay, so I got the first nut bolt off at the top of the back of this lower control arm. I got the one in the back off. I'm working on that one right now. You can see that one there. It's 21mm top, 18mm bottom. You'll be coming through the bottom. Now, how I got to this one is I came through here with my wrench, and I sat it on top of that bolt, and I went up under the bottom, up under here. All right, let me get this thing off. And I went up under here, and that's how I got that bolt out right there. Okay, I got all my bolts out. Those are the two back ones right there. Like I said, those are the 18mm with the 21 nuts on top. That one's in the front. They got some blue Loctite on it, so I'm gonna make sure I throw some blue Loctite back on it. And I got my 15mm out right here at the base of my my ball joint right here. So where is it at? Hold up. Get this idea. Yeah, right at the base of the ball joint right there. So I got that one out too. So now I just gotta, I'm gonna pry out the ball joint first. Then I'm gonna try to slide this piece out back here. Cause like I said, the sway bar link is sitting on top of it. As you can see, the sway bar link sitting, so it'll slide right out. It shouldn't be too hard. That thing should slide right out. Okay, I got the lower control arm out, and I didn't loosen up the axle nut. The reason why I didn't do it is because if you just let the whole spindle hang, there's too much tension on that ball joint, and that ball joint's not coming out. So what I did is I put a jack stand right up under my rotor, and I got it barely resting on the rotor. It's not resting on it, because if it does, this whole thing will collapse. I still got the jack up under there supporting the car. But you slowly let some of the pressure push that rotor up a little bit. So as you're lowering the car, you see the rotor going up, and the rotor's going up a little bit, and that's releasing all the pressure off that ball joint. Once you got enough pressure off that ball joint, that thing slides right out. So you don't have to take the axle nut off, get the axle out and all of that stuff if you release pressure off of the ball joint. You have to get the ball joint out first before any other thing moves. Once the ball joint comes out, then you can go on the back end where this big piece is here. I slid my bar up in here and I just pried it out. As I was prying it outwards, the ball joint started sliding towards the front of the car. Once the ball joint got out of the hole and slid towards the front of the car, I could just pull it out by hand then. Now you can test to show how, dilapidated these parts are, because here's the ball joint for the old one. I could just move this by hand real easy. That thing is just like, the ball joint is shot. And that's why having a lot of vibration when you're driving everything, that's shot. The brand new one, I can't move the ball joint at all. If I pull, the whole piece comes. Look at that. The whole piece is coming, and I can't even pull this ball joint. I'm pulling with all my might, and this ball joint does not budge at all. If I pull this ball joint, look at that. It just slides right back. That ball joint is out. So these lower control arms do have to be replaced. Like I said, this is super tight. It's not going anywhere. Let's see if I can get this thing as easy in as I got that out. Okay, before I get any further, I want to tell you how I'm putting this thing in. Now, the first thing I wanted to do was get this center bolt in. This is the center one that's on that middle piece right here. It's this bolt right there. It's that one. So I want to get that bolt in first. Just start it, not all the way in, but just start it. Because I don't want this on first. I don't want that on first. I want to get that on first. So you've got to angle it so you can slide that thing up in there. And I mean, it's kind of hard to slide it up in there. But once you get it in, you got to like kind of lift your ball joint upwards a little bit. Get this piece up. Slide it in. Just keep banging it in like this. I banged it in, slid it in place. Got that bolt threaded for the first 2 threads so I can still move it. Because what I want to do is I want to get this thing to slide right up under that sway bar. So I'm going to get that to slide up under the sway bar, but I also want to get my ball joint under so I can get it back up under the spindle here. So if I can get it back up under the spindle, then I'm good to go. But I got to move the ball joint first before I move this piece here. So I'm going to start working on my ball joint to swing that up under. I'm going to push it down, swing it up under, should lock it in place. Because that's only threaded like the first couple of threads just to hold it in place. Yeah, the back piece doesn't want to slide back in because you see that rubber boot right there? The lip of my new control arm keeps hitting that rubber boot, pushing it. So I'm going to loosen up my sway bar link. I'm going to go all the way up to the top up here. I'm going to go up to the top. This bolt here is a 15 millimeter, and then it's got like a little Allen in the middle. So I'm going to use a open-ended wrench, and I'm going to loosen up the top of that sway bar link so I can lift that sway bar up, because otherwise that thing's not sliding in there. I've tried for about 5 minutes, and I'm not going to push that thing anymore because I'm like, All right, now that I got that sway bar link out, you see it's out. Look back here. Watch this. Now you can lift this whole piece up. Let me angle it in here a little bit so you can see it better. So now when I lift the sway bar up, look at that. The whole rubber piece lifts up now. So now I can get that metal piece to slide up in there, and all I did was just loosen up that sway bar link. I'll put it back together in a second. Okay, so I got my ball joint in. So there's my ball joint right there. So I got the ball joint in. That one's all secure. I got my front still just, in the threads. Now I got to work on the back. I want to get this one situated before I tighten that up. So the ball joint is already tight. I went ahead and tightened that up and everything. That one's in there pretty secure, is locked in. Now I just got to get these rears in. But because the holes aren't completely lined up, I'm going to put a screwdriver in there and just kind of set one hole, then hurry up and thread one, and that way it should lock it in place. Because this thing is in there pretty tight. So yeah, this is going to be fun. Okay, I got all my back end bolts in. So like I said, I got those 2 in, 21 tops. Got those in, and I got this one in. As you can see, it's coming all the way through there. I got my ball joint bolt in, and these two, you got to get those lined up pretty. Like I said, you've got to use that flathead screwdriver to kind of, get those holes lined up. Stick the flathead through the hole and just kind of tweak it back and forth until one bolt goes through. Once one bolt goes through, you might have to do it to the second bolt if it doesn't line up all the way, but you can get those bolts to line up. They just have to line up through both. And then in order to get your sway bar link back in, the sway bar link, you can't have that all the way jacked up. You've got to do this again. Rest the spindle on the jack stand. Let the car down a little bit so it feels like the car tire is back on. And that right there should line up perfectly where you can just slide that thing off and on real easy. Like, because you got to get this bracket back on. So that bracket, whoops, hold up. Let me see something real quick. So you got to get this bracket right here back on. because you want to get this bracket right here on, so this bracket will slide on often like easy, a lot easier, and this sway bar link will go in a lot easier once you get that jack stand up under there and kind of let the car down a little bit, because you got to give it some pressure, release some of that tension. And now I can put my bolt back on there. You got that Allen key in the middle. I'll get that locked back on, and then I should be able to put the tire back on. Well, then you got to put this back on, but that's easy. Okay, now I got my sway bar bolt back in. Everything's good. And remember, always leave your jack up under there. Even though you got this resting up under here, that jack is up under there, because you don't have a lot of tension on here, just enough to push it up to release enough tension to get that back on. And I do this quite a bit. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, don't do that. Yeah, I wouldn't leave it resting like this if that jack wasn't up under there, because if this thing was to collapse, this whole car would just fall down. So I always leave my jack up under there. This is just barely resting on there. Okay, I'm working on passenger side and I got it almost out, but there's a leveling system. It's an 8mm bolt right on top of that swing arm. I mean, right on top of that lower control arm. And so you got to get this 8mm bolt out right here. I just got it positioned right now, but that's all it is, like a little 8mm socket, and you can get that leveling system off that. And as you can see, here's my old passenger side right there with that square in that little thing. And there it is right there, the square, and there's your little screw hole right there. So it should be set up exactly the same. If it's not, you can always tap a hole, no problem.